And welcome, dear viewers, to the weekend edition here for Breakfast Extra. It's Saturday, and we've been eagerly waiting for this moment. So thank you very much for joining us. After what turned out to be an electrifying week at News Central, we're still buzzing from the highly anticipated News Central exclusive interview that aired on Wednesday. Hope you didn't miss it. It featured none other than the former governor of Anambra State and the Labour Party 2023 presidential candidate, Peter Obi himself. And boy, what a rush. Now, that conversation, well, let's just say that the reactions have been mixed, to say the least. While some were nodding along in agreement, others were shaking their heads and furiously typing on the comment section on Twitter. But what truly stole the show were the unexpected nuggets of insight that sipped out during that interview. So if you stick with us, hey, because before the wrap of today's edition, we're going to be reviewing every highlight from that exclusive. Now, switching gears to things as they took a very solemn tune in Maiduguri. As much as we'd love to keep the mood light, there's an unfolding tragedy there where simply can't ignore this one. Maiduguri, once bustling, is now, find itself half submerged. The flooding there reportedly caused by the Alao Dam malfunction has left thousands displaced, homes swept away in rising waters. It's a disaster of enormous scale, is what they say, and our thoughts are with those who've lost so much. But, as is often said in Nigeria, when it rains, it pours, metaphorically speaking, of course. Now, even as floodwaters ravage the north, Nigerians across the country are grappling with yet another increase in fuel price. With transport costs soaring, the price of everything else seems to rise along with it, as expected. For parents, it was especially a very tough week as schools reopened and they had to balance the pressures of skyrocketing fees with everyday survival. Now get this. The kids, obviously oblivious of course, they marched off to class clueless about the hoops that their parents had to jump through just to keep them in school. And let's face facts. The fact is, half of them may never use that education. So, for most, they're going to flee the country to greener pastures before Nigeria has its way with them. And you know Nigeria can Nigeria when it wants to Nigeria. Whatever the case, hey, sit tight and grab your coffee or whatever gets you started in the morning, because Breakfast Extra is here to keep you company through all of this. I'm your host, Mazino Peel, and I'm also going to be joined by, of course, the wonderful Judith TB, none other, who's going to be co-hosting alongside myself, and of whom I'm giving the privilege to decide our theme song for today. So Judith, if you're ready, I'm wondering what theme song you've decided is going to guide us through the entire 3 hours for Breakfast Extra this morning. Judith, what do you suggest?
So I'm stuck between two. It's either Wade in the Water, which is an African-American, first of all, was a spiritual before he became a religious song, or Row, Row, Row Your Boat.
Well,
nursery rhyme? Everyone knows that one. We'll stick to that one. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream.
And let's hope.
Maiduguri, Borno State.
What? I don't know that version.
It's a new one now.
Okay. In any case, Nigeria, Africa, the world, welcome to Breakfast Extra for the weekend Saturday. We'll be back with the daily.
And thank you once again for joining us in this Saturday edition for Breakfast Extra. As always, we'll be discussing quite plenty on today's show, starting with education, especially in the north and for homeless children, as well as the floodings in Maiduguri, Borno State, as noted by Mazuna at the start of the show. And also a good look at the NC exclusive with Peter Obi, which trended over this week. It was a 1-hour exclusive with the former presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Mr. Peter Obi. And also to commemorate World Suicide Month, today we'll tackle a very critical topic and take a critical look at it, and that is suicide prevention. You most likely must have seen the video that trended on social media this week. There's these and more, as always, lined up just for you on the morning show this morning. Just, as always, great time with us, with myself, and of course, Zino Appeal.
Thank you very much, Judith. You're looking very nice. Love the pink.
I do my best,
I'm not good with colors.
I don't even know what this color is. Is it pink? Is it fuchsia?
Fuchsia? What? Anybody know what this is?
Guys?
Anybody? No help? You guys are as bad as we are. But it looks beautiful.
Yeah.
But what a week we had. Interesting
Ooh.
week. Sad, happy, everything. Situation in Maiduguri is not as simple as you think, actually.
Yes, it
Plenty
is.
of people crying out. And I saw a picture of, I think it was I can't remember which chairman, if it was local council, handing out bread to people who were trapped in their homes, who couldn't go out. So to think that this is the north. However, what you should note is this. As it's happening in the north, they're also anticipating that this might also carry on into the Niger Delta as the water flows downward.
Of course.
And I'm from the Niger Delta, and I have been to Delta State on one of those occasions where it was flooded.
Mm-hmm. It's not fun. It's not fun.
It's called a delta for a reason.
It's not fun. And Bayelsa is also a state that is 6 feet below water levels. So it's not fun. And what's interesting is that before all of this had happened, they continued to sound the alarm about the rising water levels. And you would think that with all of that, plus the torrential rain, everything else, that they would be, the people who are the arms of affairs would be wise enough to go do routine checks on the dams.
But you see, now the claim is it wasn't a dam, that it was an overflow by a river. But then again, that's what dams are supposed to do, help the overflow of rivers. So somebody's pushing the responsibility here.
It's exactly. Not us, as nature.
So I don't know, but hearts go out to people who've lost property, and they have been recorded casualties as well. So
yes,
we're hoping
and also the homeless as well. Now the IDP camps. We're going to get into all of that and more, but first, let's bring you the dailies for today. We're going to get started with our very first one, and it's going to be the Saturday Vanguard. It starts with federal government. Dangote reach agreement on petrol supply. Lifting begins tomorrow. You can find that story on page 5. Good times
ahead. What are you
ahead.
expecting here? Would it affect the price of PMS in any way?
No, I don't think it will.
But availability, perhaps?
Availability, yes. Affordability, no. That's one thing for certain. Wiki explodes. There's PDP governors not ready to forgive Fubara. Edorek is my cousin. Nobody can intimidate him. That story is on page 7.
Says
Did you watch the interview?
I saw the interview.
Oh, my goodness. Good times. Good times. At the top there, hardship, animal feed, now delicacy to some families. I thought that was a wrong word. I was like, wait, what? My head had to process that word first. Animal feed now delicacy to some families. Nigerians speak on their desperate struggles to survive. Page 10. I never thought that a day would come that I would see such a headline on the front page of a national daily.
The funny thing about that headline is the way it actually starts. At the very top, it says it's like an entire column dedicated to hardship. It's like hardship.
It's
today
hard,
on hardship.
It's hard. Edo Gubas will gear up for the election September 21st, 2024. Election or war? Why PDP did not sign peace accord. Obasaki. Other parties react. Our rec can't influence results, INEC assures. That story is on page 14. INEC, you might want to be careful because Wike has already told you that his cousin is the Edorek and nobody can intimidate him. At the bottom there, Maiduguri flood disaster, 2 die in stampede for food. Hunger pushes non-victims in IDP camps for food palliatives. Civilian GTF rape women to take our food. That's from a victim there. Dangote donates 2 billion naira, calls for support to Borno. You can find that story on pages 6 and page 9. Health. Breakthrough drug kills cancer cells without harming healthy tissue. That story is on page 18. You can find these and more on the Saturday at Vanguard.
Moving on now. We're moving to the next paper, and that is the Punch newspaper for a Saturday. And on the Punch first page here, you'd find these headlines. Edo gubernatorial poll, APC, PDP, LP trade tackles as parties mobilize huge funds for vote buying. Parties may pay 20,000 naira per vote. EFCC INEC warn against inducements. So please, you've been warned. At the very top, actress buddies their most valuable assets, says Hilda Dokuba. I think we know this already. And when love is blind, visually impaired broadcaster beats odds to marry sighted friend. This is a good story. We like. Right next to that, we've got petrol loading from Dangote refinery begins next week, say marketers, and we are excited to see this. Current Super Eagles lacking 1994 squad chemistry, says Peter Rufai. Where has he been? He is one of my childhood legendary heroes. Good to see him in the pages of the newspapers again. Mass poisoning, freed Nigerian-Canadian woman justifies threat. Remember her from 2 weeks ago? The lady
yes.
who was, I don't know how you can justify such a threat, but yeah. Unanswered questions 1 year after Mohbad's death and ritual. Single ladies panic as bloodthirsty boyfriends slaughter lovers. There was another case of a young university undergraduate who murdered a girl only just 2 days ago. So this is becoming a thing, and very unfortunate that it is, especially at this time. We don't need any more of these bad stories. We're hoping.
You know what's very unsettling about this incident is actually the videos, the confessional videos, when they are asking them questions and why did you do it? Where did you get her from? It's like, why are such videos trending on social media to begin with? Who are these people asking them? Why? Where are they? Like, it's just, the whole thing is just so Nigerian.
Oh.
You know what I mean?
Oh, that's the word. That's it for the Punch for Saturday. Let's see our next paper, and that will be The Nation.
Yes, indeed. We'll switch gears now to The Nation with the very first one. Wike, no apologies for threatening PDP governors with fire. Anger in Fubara's campus. PDP grants FCT minister control of rivers. That story is on page 4. Man, PDP, go up here. At the top there, Edo Guba election. APC dares PDP to fulfill boycott threat. That story is on page 28. Oil marketers fault Dangote refinery's claim of low patronage. That story is on page 6. Former minister in dirty paternity, Rao. That story is on page 5. Interesting. Flooding. Federal government puts Niger Delta southern states on alert. You can find that story on pages 28 and 30. Police recover 11 bodies in Borno. Very sad there. And at the bottom, Dangote refinery begins distribution of PMS tomorrow. Edu. I'm sure that's Wale Edu there. That story is on page 28 of The Nation.
Okay, now, for our next daily for a Saturday, we move on to the Guardian newspaper here. Guardian newspaper, never sparing anything when it comes to, well, their very huge cartoons in front of the paper. Risk notwithstanding, what makes egg donation alluring to young women? This is a thing. This is a thing? This is a thing? But first off, there's a good side to it, then there are other aspects that you have to look at. But you'd find this on page 7, 8, and 9. Apparently, it's a very big, long read for a Saturday on The Guardian. At the very top, ECWO harnessing Nigeria's untapped gas potential for economic development, and Iradia, as a developing society, Nigeria must not foolishly tie itself to a political party. You'd find that one on page 25 for a Saturday read. And at the very bottom for The Guardian, under the very big cartoon there, Tinubu and the writing on the wall. Inside stuff. Back page, you might want to check that one out. That's it for The Guardian. Very few headlines on it this morning. Moving on to the weekend.
Let's switch to the weekend. It's the weekend. There it goes. Gani Adams, Ajaro Tuji, as well as Eguavon in the news. You can find the story on page 15. X-raying many missed deadlines of Port Harcourt refinery resumption. That story is on page 12. Why I take the bullet for PDP. Damagum says APC campaigning for Ross ahead 2027. He will win elections if members unite. Sule Lamido, selfish interests responsible for our problems. Abba Muro, they're just tackling all the in-party fighting and squabbles inside of the
depiction
PDP.
there. The cartoon is
very interesting. They're trying to glue an umbrella that has been shattered, literally shattered. NAF kills bandits, Kingpin, Kachala, 28 others. Sounds so much like T'Challa. You can find that story on page 27. Inside declining features fortunes of Yankari Game Reserve. That story is on page 28. Sometimes I forget their proper game reserves in Nigeria.
Oh, have you been to that one? Yankari? You should go. I don't know if it's the same. I was there about 20 years ago.
Mazino.
Yes, I'm that old. I'm that old.
And he can never pass up an opportunity to let you know how
More
old he
than
is.
20 years, 25 years ago. Keep counting, Z.
But what's interesting is that you're comparing 2020.
25 years.
Come on now.
Hopefully it's better is what I'm hoping.
Times
and
have changed.
not bad, because it was a very interesting experience as a young man being there in the midst of nature. Beautiful. In any case, that's as much as we can do for the dailies. You want to join us for some very hot, interesting topics during the course of the show. Let's go on a very short break, and when we get back, we'll be bringing you these topics one after the other. Do stay with us. Welcome again. Now to one of the biggest stories coming out of National Assembly this week. Now, hang on a second. That's a bit of a problem there, a little issue there. No, we're not going to that story. Instead, let's talk about the situation in the north when it comes to education and, of course, the Almajiris. As only just earlier this week, there was a very interesting package here on News Central, which I'd like us to play before we introduce our guest, well, one of our News Central correspondents in the north, Umaru Kirawa. But first, that package.
A smile by this child amidst the resilience of not knowing when and how to get food on the street of Maiduguri, the Borno state capital. These children wandered the street in search of food and other support from individuals in the metropolis, a retrogressive narrative that News Central keeps reporting in search of an action.
The National Assembly, under the able leadership of His Excellency Dr. Tajuddin Abbas, is determined to provide funds in the 2025 budget for the Almajiri and out-of-school children in line with the renewed hope agenda of His Excellency President Ahmed Bola Tinubu. If we get the out-of-school children back on board, definitely the crisis, the chaotic issues, they are the potential scouters by the bandit insurgency Boko Haram. An idle mind is a devil's workshop. It's an enlightened interest of the government to engage them, to call them, to put them into and use and utilize them in all aspects of life, in all aspects, ramification of discharge of this country. Without engaging the out-of-school children, definitely there is no way we can solve the insecurity. By extension, insecurity is not only taking of arms. No, leaving your own children doing nothing is a catastrophe and it's a disaster in future. So therefore, we will work towards that, not only working on the present out-of-school children, we will go even into the health sector to control the birth system, where parents that are giving birth to children that they cannot cater and care for.
The chairman of the House of Representatives Committee on National Security flagged off the disbursement of 20 million naira scholarship to vulnerable students of Jeri and urged them to volunteer as teachers to help in their nearby areas.
I should advise our government to continue with this kind of programs and to create even more of this so that it will help the less privileged ones to pursue their studies. And again, also those that are affected by the insurgencies, they should not be feel ashamed or they should not feel less privileged to continue, or even poverty or something to prevent them from studying or from furthering their educations.
He needs to help us, we the youths that we are in school, so that we can be able to have an access to the school and we can be able to afford some materials and then further our education in the future.
Mitigating the insecurity bedeviling the region and Nigeria as a whole seems to require an effective mechanism to tackle the social factors that contribute to the problem. In Maiduguri for News Central, Umaru Kirawa.
And that report there from over the week was by our correspondent live from Borno, Maiduguri, Umaru Kirawa, who joins us now to discuss the details about the report. Umaru, thank you so much for joining us. Let's begin by unpacking some of what you uncovered by putting together this report. What is the current amount or current estimate of the Almajiri population across the northern states? I would like for you, I know a number, it might be a bit difficult, but how many persons are we looking at this region?
Yes. Based on the statistics so far, out of 800,000 out-of-school children who are gallivanting the streets of Maiduguri and other parts of the city. However, the unofficial figure will be more than that, because even the statistics of the out-of-school children no one can give you accurate statistics of the out-of-school children, because when I had a discussion with an expert who is a leader and he has a Sangaya, he was telling me that the official figures is not up to 5% of the out-of-school children as claimed by the government. However, much really need to be done in addressing some of the problems, particularly of the out-of-school children, so as to avert future disaster or future catastrophe by these children who are in a very sorry state, and the condition they are, the lack of food, they beg, and so on and so forth. So the Nigerian government really need to match what with action by actually taking into consideration the Almajiri, and of course holding their parents accountable to the needs and yearnings of their children.
So Umaru, could you also shed some light on the historic roots of the Almajiri system? I'm hoping that you were able to gather some information about that. Where did the practice really originate from, and how has it evolved over time?
Well, the Almajiri system has been an established system of Islamic learning. If we could know, Borno has more than 1,000 years of history, and the Almajiri system has been one of the excellent means where children get education from teachers, and the Almajiri system has both boarding and then day. There are some children who are staying in their homes, their parents' home, and they will be going to the Sangaya, they will be learning, and they will be going back home. While others, they stay at the schools, learning schools. However, with the gradual change in the system, people used this means to give birth unnecessarily, and then bring their children to Borno, claiming that they want their children to learn Islam, to learn Quran, and so on and so forth. And at the end, they are not taking care of their feeding, their clothing, their health, and so on and so forth. So it was along the line that the thing deteriorated, which actually require government intervention.
Right. Kira, I'm very intrigued. I mean, child neglect is one thing that has gone overlooked and underreported in Nigeria. But the National Assembly seems to believe that addressing the issues surrounding the Almajiri population will best address the regional insecurity, especially in Borno State. Can you help in linking the two? Like, in reporting this, and with your, you being on ground there in Borno and reporting, do you see an interrelationship between the two, Almajiri population and the regional insecurity?
Well, they are connected, because leaving these children on the streets gallivanting, it's a national security issue, it's a national security concern. However, if the Nigerian government will match what will action by saying that they will include the catering of these children in the 2025, if peradventure they are serious on it, I think it will go a long way in addressing most of the problems of northern Nigeria, and by extension Nigeria. Because, for instance, I have this idea. For yesteryears, I've been sharing with people that if truly the Nigerian government wants to solve this problem, there are two ways about it. One, we have the state government, particularly Borno State government, has established vocational training centers. The government can enroll these children into these vocational training centers, engage them in various skills. For instance, we can engage some in carpentry and joinery, welding and fabrication, painting and decoration, computer craft studies, artificial intelligence, and so on and so forth. And these children, if empowered with skills as well as the knowledge that they are acquiring, I think it will go a long way in addressing most of the problem. And this will also help in boosting the GDP of the country, as well as providing employment opportunity for many. But if the Nigerian government failed to engage these children, then I'm sorry, the future is something else.
We always talk about reformation, right? Reformation, rehabilitation, investment, and all of that. But besides the federal government and the local government and, and now the National Assembly, what else, who else is missing in terms of stakeholders when it comes to the Almajiri population?
I think one missing link is the traditional institution, as well as the parents too. When we get policies, we get the policy, and those engaged, those that have direct bearing on the policy are not engaged, then both natural, that policy will certainly, it will not see the light of the day. However, when we engage the traditional institution, because they are much more closer to the people, particularly in northern Nigeria, they are considered they are considered the leaders of the society. They are considered those that hold the culture, the rich tradition of the people, and they have much say on the people. So if the Nigerian government can engage the traditional institution, give them role, that is one major aspect that that is one major aspect that the Nigerian government is failing to understand. Unless we engage those people that are much more closer to the people, then both natural, you will keep pumping money, you will keep giving funds, but it won't see the light of the day. And the parents too, there is need for reorientation, social reorientation, and if that aspect failed, I think if the ideological state apparatus of convincing and persuading the parents fails, then both natural, the government can apply the use of force to give maybe parents a penalty if they could not take good care of their parents. But the unfortunate part of it is even the nation as a whole, we do not even know the total number of people in the country up to now.
Right.
Census has yes.
Kirawa, I'm very intrigued, right, and hopefully you can help me to help help me with this. A significant fund will now be allocated to Almajiri education for the 2025 budget. This is what they're proposing. One question here is transparency, but second is implementation and the Almajiri population, going according, because there's one thing that, they've been in the news. I think it was one time in Kaduna, the Kaduna state government, that was during the Rafai tenure, took the Almajiri children out of there and they took them to where they were from, and they came back into the state capital, Kaduna State. And so if this is going to be implemented, do you see a situation where the children will accept this education and integrate into the educational system properly?
Most certainly, they are children. It's what you show them that they will learn, or what you give them that they will. They are on the streets. They are begging. Some of them who have mind, they are hawking. Some of them sell sachets of water. Some of them sell this. Some of them beg. Some of them steal. Some of them. So if the Nigerian government is really, if there is that political will, the issue of street children, the issue of out-of-school children, addressing it is feasible. The Nigerian government can do it. It's doable. We have all the structures. We have all the policy. They have the Almajiri. For instance, in Borno State, they have the Almajiri and Sangaya board. So there are structures, but the political will need to be reinforced, and the Nigerian government needs to prioritize. There is misplacement of priority. That is the major problem, and sometimes siphoning of funds and corruption.
Yeah.
Because even during the Goodluck era, there are so many initiatives on the Almajiri. They have constructed buildings, in a lot of northern states. But it's just news now. It's just there in the books of history. And children are still on the streets, begging, hawking. And if care is not taken, if the Nigerian government is not conscious to the needs and aspirations of the populace, the future, I mean, I'm sorry to say it, but the future is going to be a disaster. Because we can't control them. We can easily control the children now. We can empower them, we can teach them, we can give them skills. We can teach them different vocational training skills so that they can earn a means of livelihood. Since education is compulsory and free, even during the universal basic education, universal primary education, now universal basic education, and so on and so forth. These are policies on paper. So the Nigerian government really needs to stay on toes, to actually deliver on its mandate of securing lives and properties and providing welfare to the people, to the citizenry.
Kirawa, I've got one question, and it's a very curious one regarding why Borno seems to be a center for the Almajiris. Is it just Borno, or are there other states that still grapple with this issue? And the responsibility of the state government from before, not just now, what has it been leading up to this decision that's been made?
Well, the situation is not limited to Borno alone, and it might interest you to know that it's not limited to northern Nigeria. Even in southern part of Nigeria, it's there. It's just that the nomenclature is different. When I spoke with a professor of political science, he was telling me that in northern Nigeria, mostly we see children, male children on the street. They're out of the street. But if you go to southern part of Nigeria too, you will see they are mostly women. They are girls that are on the street. So the problem is not limited to northern Nigeria alone. It's a Nigerian issue, and it needs a Nigerian solution so that we'll get it right this time around.
And the state responsibility, what has the state government done since from before? Or have they taken this as a perhaps maybe a responsibility for them to take them out of the streets, perhaps maybe into infrastructure that could cater for them? Or are they just letting them be there out on the streets?
And the state government, from what we are seeing, the state government, what it did, particularly that of Borno State, it was able to establish.
We seem to have lost Umaru there. We'll try to make, which we seem to have lost him there. But we still have him come in for our next segment, which was going to be the big story. And this time it will be on the flooding in Maiduguri, Borno State. Umaru Kirawa is our correspondent live there, and was just giving us some insightful responses regarding the 2025 budget allocation. Significant funds have now, they have now said will be allocated to focus on Almajiri education. Well, we'll wait to see how that will. We'll take a short break, and we come back on the other side. We switch gears to the crucial issue of flooding in the north. Stay with us. Our first big story this morning takes us to the northeast, where a devastating flood has just submerged about 70% of Maiduguri, Borno State. Now, this catastrophe was said to have been triggered by the collapse of the Alo Dam, leaving thousands displaced and in urgent need of aid. In response, the federal government has opened several IDP camps, but the scale of the disaster remains overwhelming.
Now, as Maiduguri grapples with the aftermath, we'll be delving deeper into the cause of the flooding and also broader implications for the region. How is the government responding? What can the displaced expect in terms of support, and what does it mean for the communities further downstream? To help us understand the situation better, we welcome back Umaru Kirawa, who's our news central correspondent, and also we were supposed to be joined by Mr. Sirajo Gaba, the Northeast Acting Zonal Coordinator of NEMA, but unfortunately we are unable to reach him this morning. Hopefully before the end of this segment we'll be able to communicate with him. But still, let's talk with Umaru Kirawa, who's been on ground and also will be talking to us with a couple of victims of the situation. But while we're waiting for Kirawa to get us those victims, we have seen some of the footages from inside of Maiduguri.
And I would like to show you some of them as well. Yeah,
exactly.
So let's roll the clip. We'll show you some of that flooding and some of the all the scenes from over the week at Borno where the flooding started. Take a look.
More families trooped into government-designated camps in Maiduguri, the Borno state capital. As the devastating water recedes, the scale of destruction is becoming clearer, with many neighborhoods rendered uninhabitable.
Ta yanzu haka ma wallahi sauran yara na ba san inda halin da suke ciki ba. Muna roƙon Ubangiji Allah ya takaita mana abin da Allah ya jarrabe mu da shi.
I don't know how refugees suffers once they are in the camps, but now I realize that really they need help. We appreciate the support of the state government by packing us here and also giving us enough accommodation and at least giving us 3 meals quite in a day.
I did not see my junior brothers and my father till now, presently now.
Cash assistance and other forms of support are being distributed to displaced families now residing in IDP camps across the city.
A sum of 10,000 naira to each and every heads of household that are affected by floods. And I also want to inform you that a few days ago, luckily enough, we received 3 billion naira from the federal government as flood intervention fund. So we are using this fund to support the communities that are affected by the flood.
Minister of Water Resources, under whose jurisdiction the Alo Dam is coming today to Maiduguri with a view with his technical team with a view to inspecting the Alo Dam and taking both remedial short-term and long-term measures that will avert such ugly scenario in future.
The flooding has disrupted daily life and crippled the local economy, with businesses and services severely impacted.
A yanzu haka akwai yara na waɗanda ban same su ba guda biyu. A'a suna raye, a'a ba sa raye ban sani ba sai Allah. Amma waɗansu suna samu su ban samu ba. Tun ɗazu haka hankali na a tashe.
These families patiently wait to access medical services at the camps. Some families are stranded, trying to connect with their loved ones.
While trying to cover the 2024 flood disaster that bedeviled Maiduguri, the Borno State capital, even journalists, we were stopped here at the State Secretariat, Musa Usman Secretariat, Maiduguri, the Borno State capital. We hope things get better and people get back to their homes very soon. In Maiduguri for News Central, Umaru Kirawa.
I must say that before this happened, before we tried to get a hold of Umaru Kirawa after the flooding, it was a bit difficult.
It has been difficult. I mean, you should expect that it will be difficult, especially when it comes to communication after such a disaster or catastrophe. But Umaru is still going to be joining us. We're hoping that we will be able to establish communication with him in just a bit, and also Sir Sirajo Gaba, hopefully as well. But the very interesting thing about Maiduguri is that you don't know, or many people didn't know exactly what the structure of Maiduguri was until now, and that it could be prone to such flooding. When you think of the north, you never think that it's going to have such a problem.
You always think it's highlands,
exactly.
And not,
But most of the issue is really not even from Nigeria, because you have these tributaries, or rather these rivers that flow through, and when they overflow, that's when you have the situation that we have currently. Now, I'm being told that we have been joined by our guest, and that is Mr. Sirajo Gaba. He's the Northeast Acting Zonal Coordinator of NEMA. Mr. Sirajo, you're welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. Good morning to you.
Yes, good morning to you all. Nice to be here.
All right. Now, Mr. Sirajo, if you would please first off give us a first-hand information or a description of the situation in Maiduguri currently.
Currently, the description is that a lot of people are still trapped in areas that include Muna, Custom, SSS quarters, 505 estates. The level of the volume of water that came in from Alo Dam was overwhelming. And we have thousands of people, as at the profiling we did yesterday in 13 established camps by the Borno State government. We have profiled over 130,000 people, with a lot of partners and stakeholders trying their best to evacuate those that have been trapped still on the water. the military is doing its best. NEMA also we have our evacuation, search and rescue evacuation team that has also joined and are trying their best to bring people to safety. Some of the issues I think has to do with the equipment that is being used, because some of the power poles can't reach these areas because the water came with a lot of things, pulled cars, trucks, and what have you. About 3 or 4 bridges that connects us to the other side, the town was divided into 2. That is the situation at the moment, and in the camps, we're providing medical assistance, water, while wet feeding is ongoing by the Borno State government and other partners, where there's a central cooking pattern. So because of the thousands of people that have been affected, hundreds of thousands, or if not over 1 million, I think it's overwhelming. But partners have all come in, and we're having a coordinated approach. The camp coordination, camp management structures have been put in place in the camps where we are providing health. We have the health sector, we have food security sector. And,
Mr. Sarajo, we also wanted to find out the origin of this catastrophe. They tell that it is the malfunctioning of the dam that has caused these flooding. But yet again, yesterday, authorities made claim that it was from the overflowing of a certain river. So which exactly is it? Is it a malfunctioning of systems at the dam, or a river getting overflowed?
Well, I am not an engineer, I'm a humanitarian worker, but the flow of the water was from the dam. That's the Alu Dam. That is what the person in charge told us, that a dike along the spillway gave way. Not that the dam has fully collapsed. It overflew because of the volume of the water. It received so much water from, I think, the tributaries of the rivers they are talking about. So it has to discharge one way or the other. And once it finds an outlet, it will take advantage of that. So basically, I think that is what happened based on the explanation that has been given. Not that the whole dam has collapsed, but a portion of the dike on the dam.
All right. Well, Mr. Sarajo, we must say thank you so much for coming on and giving us this update. We appreciate you for doing this with us this morning. We're going to a short break. When we come back on the other side, there's more. Stay with us.
And you're welcome back as we take a look at Maiduguri submerged, as we have information about the malfunctioning dam that's causing the city to be underwater currently. We have with us Umaru Kirawa, our new central correspondent in Borno State. Umaru, thank you for joining us. I'm being told that you have with you a victim that we might want to hear from. Can we have him on so we can hear exactly what's been happening from their side of the story? Unfortunately, I think we have lost Kirawa once again.
If I were the victim, I'll be like, I'm in water. What more do you want from me?
Yeah, I can understand
I'll be like,
that.
I'm in water. What more do you want from me? But honestly, whether it's the dam malfunctioning or river that's overflown, one thing is certain. The message from the Met had been coming long before now. There was going to be torrential rain. There will be thunderstorms. The water levels will rise, and works needed to be done. And preparation should have happened long before now, but at this scale, my heart goes out to the victims. We understand that Umaru Kirawa is back on. Umaru, if you can hear me. Umaru.
Yes, I can hear you now.
Fantastic. I would like to speak with, we understand that you have a victim with you. We'd like to hear their personal account of how the flooding has affected them and their family.
It's fine. So, Babak, the farko ka gaya mana cikakken sunanka?
Nana Adamu Abdullahi.
Okay. To ma Adamu Abdullahi, me zaka gaya mana dangane da abubuwan nan da ya faru?
Ibtila'i da ya faru gaskiya ina da ya ce mu ce mun fitar da ranmu, amma ba mu fitar da komai ba. Shine kuma gashi mun zo mun zauna nan ɗin ma mun fita mun sake tafiya wani gu amma duka abin ba wani abin nan da ya canza. Saboda can ma inda muka je yanzu daga Bakasi na dawo nan. A Bakasi ma gaba ɗaya abubuwa ana kawo dai taimako amma taimakon baya shiga hannun mutane. Saboda wasu ne suke karkatarwa suke kaiwa gun wasu wanda suke da bukata su ba su. Shi ne abubuwan da yake faruwa kuma mutane yanzu ba komai suke bukata ba suna bukatar taimako ne su samu abin da za su ci ko su samu su koma mazaninsu.
Ok, to kai kana zama a Bakasi ne ko kana zama a Yarwa nan ne?
Na zauna a nan amma yanzu ina Bakasi yau kwana na biyu a ciki.
Ko me yasa ka canja kam?
Abin da ya sa ma na tafi Bakasi in ce ana yin aikin leburanci ne shi yasa na tafi saboda ni aikin samu abin da zan ci.
Okay.
So what this man is saying is that he stays at the Bakasi IDP camp, but he rushed down here at the Yarwa GSS IDP's camp because he learned that there are petty works that are ongoing in the camp. So he came to join so that he will earn a means of livelihood from the work that is ongoing at the camp. But unfortunately, he has not gotten any for now. And he is complaining that the particularly food that are being brought to the camps are inadequate, and they are complaining that these foods are being given to some selected few at the camp, and he is complaining that much needs to be done to meet to their needs, to their demands, particularly to their basic necessities like food and so on and so forth. So I will ask him again to tell us more with regard to the experience here.
Umar,
Yes,
we're pressed for a bit of time. We'd love to hear more about his story, but unfortunately we're out of time. But very quickly, you were also affected. Let us know your own story. Tell us your story.
Yes, in my own side, my house has not been affected personally, but that of my camera operator is down. The house has been submerged by water and it's not even made since this disaster happened. So trying to report because the flood has divided the city into two. There are others on the other side, which we call the island, and we are on the mainland. It has divided the city into two, and we can't access those locations for now, but I will try to reconnect with him maybe when he gets out of the area. And we have so many displaced persons in houses for now, and we have to cater for them with people that have. So far, this is my side of the story. And
all right.
A lot of people are being affected, really.
All right. Well, Umar, many thanks. I appreciate you for doing this with us, for this thorough reporting the entirety of this week, just covering the story and giving us to us as it unfolds. We want to say thank you so much and well done. Thank you. Coming up next is the headlines, the breakfast headlines. Stay here. And it's time for breakfast headlines. We begin with security matters, where operatives of the IGP Special Task Force on Petroleum and Illegal Bunkering have uncovered an illegal petroleum refinery in Port Harcourt, Rivers State. Force Police Relations Officer Olumuyiwa Adejobi described the findings as a significant breakthrough in the continuous fight against oil theft, illegal bunkering, and economic sabotage. Adejobi said the operation had led to the arrest of 4 suspects and the recovery of 4,000 litres of petroleum products stored in 67 white storage tanks.
IGP Special Task Force on Petroleum and Illegal Bunkering operatives bust illegal petroleum refinery, arrest 4 suspects. As IGP re-echoes fight against economic saboteurs, the operatives of the Special General Police Special Task Force on Petroleum and Illegal Bunkering have once again made a significant breakthrough in the continuous fight against oil theft, illegal bunkering, and economic sabotage. This milestone achievement was marked after the operatives, in collaboration with the Department of Operations, Rivers State Police Command, on 12 September 2024, made discovery of a storage facility in Trans-Amadi Port Harcourt, Rivers State, used in dealing and processing illegally acquired crude oil. This operation had led to the arrest of 4 suspects, namely Emmanuel Mwachi, male 58 years, Adamu Bala, male 35 years, Nora Musa, male 22 years, Bashir Abubakar, male 28 years, and the recovery of 40,000 liters of petroleum products stored in 67 wide storage tanks. The team, however, destroyed the site and recovered the equipment and machines used in committing these crimes. The Inspector General of Police of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, IGP Olukayode Adeolegbeto Kopedi, NPM has re-emphasized the commitment of the force to tackling every form of crime, criminality.
Staying in Rivers State, the Minister of Federal Capital Territory, Nyesom Wike, has solidified his position in the People's Democratic Party leadership crisis as the National Working Committee endorsed the Rivers State Congresses. Wike's loyalists within the PDP NWC not only secured the approval, but also postponed the National Executive Committee meeting originally set for September 26th to October 24th, which could have overturned the decision. The PDP NWC, led by Acting National Chairman Umar Damagum, made this decision during a meeting at the party's national headquarters, Wadadat Plaza in Abuja. The NWC meeting had been delayed for the past 3 weeks amid rising tensions within the party, especially between former Rivers State Governor Wike and the PDP Governors Forum over the status of Rivers State Party Congresses. And on to Edo State, where a pro-democracy group has warned politicians participating in the upcoming Edo State governorship election to shun campaigns promoting violence and focus on issues they intend to address when elected into office. The group, while expressing concerns over recent events in the state leading to the governorship poll, said the attitude of politicians in the state is capable of setting the state on fire.
Desperate politicians should desist forthwith from fanning the embers and beating the tom-tom of war as we approach the election dates. They should take cognizance of the fact that power is transient, ephemeral and transitory. Nothing, I say nothing.
Still on politics, National Interim Chairperson of the Labour Party, Nnadi Usman, has expressed a desire to be remembered for leaving behind a unified, formidable and indomitable party capable of winning elections nationwide. In our inaugural address, Usman emphasized the need for forgiveness, integrity and fairness to achieve this goal. Usman acknowledged the party's previous conflicts, but stressed that no group or individual should feel defeated as everyone emerged victorious through the reality of the law. She also encouraged party members to put aside their differences and work together towards a common goal. And now on to update on the Maiduguri flood. Founder and Chief Executive of Dangote Group, Aliko Dangote, has donated 2 billion naira to support victims of the recent flood disaster in Maiduguri, Borno State. Aliko Dangote made the donation when he visited Maiduguri alongside the Governor of Nasarawa State, Abdullahi Sule, and a delegation from NNPC Limited towards hastening recovery efforts. News Central's Umaru Kirawa reports that prominent Nigerian figures like business leaders and political figures have stepped forward to provide aid.
We have the Presidential Committee on Flood and Flood Disaster. That committee, which I chair, they've already committed about 1 billion naira. And then Aliko Dangote Foundation will also give another 1 billion. We will continue to mobilize other funds and sources to see what we can do to alleviate this suffering of our people. So definitely, this 2 billion give it as early as possible. For all the support that he has been rendering towards uplifting the standard of living of the displaced communities in Borno State since 2009 to date. The establishment of gas power plant alone in Borno State is something that the entire people of Borno State are hearing the GMD and its team for its establishment in Borno State, in addition to the numerous contribution that he has been rendering. I want to pray that Almighty Allah.
In the meantime, the Northeast Development Commission has unveiled plans to reconstruct Alo Dam and repair numerous bridges across the Northeast states which were severely damaged by recent flooding. The managing director of the NADEC, Mohammed Al-Khali, made this known in Maiduguri while releasing grains and other items to victims of the flood. News Central's Umaru Kirawa completes the report.
Thousands of houses and other infrastructures are still submerged in Maiduguri, the Borno State capital. With more than 1 million persons affected, victims of the flood take refuge at government camps or houses of loved ones. The collapse of the Alo Dam, which has been allegedly filled to capacity for the past 1 week, is said to be the cause of the flood in Maiduguri.
The long term is how to control the occurrence of such things in the future. Alo Dam, we now said it got annoyed, angry, and for 30 years ago, and it did it again. And what happened the 2 days ago is times 2 of what happened in 30 years ago. So we need to work to stop it from happening, or if it happens again in the future, let it be 1, not 3. So, but that is going to be a very huge collaboration between the federal government, the state government, and all other agencies of our government or donor agencies which we are going to pursue so that we do the needful.
The project aims to restore vital infrastructure, ensuring better resilience against future natural disasters.
We are going to release about 200,000 bags of rice to the whole of Northeast, 200,000 bags of rice. We are going to also release 150,000 cartons of macaroni or spaghetti. And we are going to release 50,000 cartons of vegetable oil. When you multiply by 5, you have about 250,000 gallons of vegetable oil. We're also going to release blankets, about 200,000. We're going to also release mats, branded mats, about 200,000. And we're also going to release about 50,000 pieces of shadda for the men, because like those who are affected by this flood, the bridge collapse, I mean, they left their houses without taking any of their wares. We're also going to release our 50,000 pieces of for the women, another 50,000 pieces so that they can be able to recoup. Children wares, we have about 65,000 pieces.
The relief effort aims to alleviate food shortages in the region, which has been struggling with extensive damage from the flood disaster. In Maiduguri for News Central, Umaru Kirawa.
And we now will bring you a report from Emmanuel Bagudu, who is on standby at the nation's capital. Emmanuel Bagudu, if you can hear me.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Good morning from Zamfara.
I can hear you loud and clear. Good morning, Emmanuel. Go ahead, please.
Yes, thank you so much. Today is one of our last days in Zamfara, and of course we have returned to the gold mining site. And this time around, we are being, reaching out to the young ones, and we are just talking to them to really find out where are they, involved in this hard labor. Ranka dai ya sunanka?
Sunana Abdul.
Kalle ni mana ya sunanka? Abdul.
Awo.
Me yasa kana wannan aikin?
Abin da ya samu ko wannan aikin dan ɗaya mu samu abin da mun ka ci.
Dan da samu abin da ci?
Awo, muka
ba ka ci abinci yau da safe?
A'a.
Kana zuwa makaranta?
Muna zuwa makaranta.
So, what he just said is that he's forced to get involved in this job, because he is not having, there's no food in the house, and then there is no nothing to support himself. That's why he's coming out here to get this gold and then mine and then support his family. Can I get mana wannan aikin da kake yi? Su wa kake saida musu?
Dilolan.
Dilolin ku sun fito ina? Sun fito ina?
Ba su fito ba.
Na suke yanzu?
Suna can cikin gari.
Cikin garin Zamfara Guzo ko ina?
Nan Maru.
Nan Maru.
Awo.
So kamar nawa kake samu a ranar da dan kai wannan aikin?
Ina samun 1,500.
1,500?
Awo.
Kaman guda nawa, kaman zanariya nawa, zanariya kwaya nawa kenan kin ka samu?
Tana da yawa.
Fasan nawa kenan?
Fasan nawa? Ina an samun 2 ko 3 ko guda.
Fasan 2 ko 3?
Awo.
Okay, so he makes at least 1,200 in a day when he gets 1 or 2% of the particles of gold. So far so good. That's a level of interaction this morning with the young children, and I will give you more of that report in our subsequent reports by evening. Thank you.
Oh, many thanks, Manu Bagudu there in Zamfara. They're just covering illegal mining as children are involved in such illegal activities. We want to bring you more updates in subsequent bulletins. This is Breakfast Extra. We're going on a short break. Stay with us.
Welcome again. Now, our second big story for today delves into the pressing issues surrounding Nigeria's economic future, particularly in the context of the 2025 budget and national resource allocation. Now, with rising concerns over the squanderings of public funds and ineffective use of the nation's limited resources, key areas such as health, education, and agricultural investment remain underfunded. In a recent statement by Peter Obi, former presidential candidate of the LP party for 2023, emphasized the need for the government to prioritize its small resources toward these essential sectors to drive development.
Now, the news Central's exclusive that aired on Wednesday on News Central TV, Peter Obi voiced his concerns about Nigeria's inability to sustain certain national assets and institutions. Notably, he criticized the absence of a national library befitting Nigeria's status, a consequence of mismanagement and fund diversion. Obi also hinted at the exclusive, or rather excessive, cost of maintaining a presidential jet and raised the possibility of returning to a parliamentary system as a measure of transparency and cost efficiency.
Now, on the broader issues, subsidy removal, the role of agriculture in combating food insecurity, and the persistent problems of inflation and corruption continue to weigh heavily on the minds of Nigerians. Obi's advocacy for the right investment in the agricultural sector aims to address these problems, but will the government step up in time is the question. What can we expect from the 2025 budget allocations, and how will the government tackle inefficiencies in ministries and also agencies? So to discuss these issues, we are joined by a distinguished panel. We have Devo Kore on video call with us. He's a public affairs analyst. And of course, also in the studio with us, Anikere Funke Treasure. She's a lecturer and broadcaster. And also Olabode Afolayan, trader and MD of PILS Limited. I want to say thank you to all of you for joining us.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Before we go into the questions, we want to begin. We would like to play an excerpt from the exclusive on the government's need to prioritize resources and also mismanagement of funds. Let's take a look at this from the NC exclusive from Wednesday.
The budget of, say, National Library. A country the size of Nigeria does not have a national library to date. We have the National Assembly trying to build its own library for about 15 billion naira. When the budget of National Library is not up to 1 billion. That is where the whole nation, and I'm sure the amount of their own library, cumulatively, if we put all the universities together, you have budget of, again, National Assembly Clinic being 15 billion naira. When, if you put together the entire teaching hospitals, which is, in quotes, the height of our healthcare. If you put teaching hospital of our foremost universities, Ibadan, Nsukka, University of Nigeria, Ahmadu Bello, Lagos, is less than the budget of the capital budget, is less than the budget of National Assembly Clinic. I can go on and on. The Ministry of Science as a ministry, the entire capital budget is about 6 billion. When the budget of the car park of House of Rep and the Senate is about 6 billion.
So the priority of the government is to create car park.
Totally
much more
misplaced in today's system. And if you've seen that the pardon, which they said is not true, have now become even a reality. Because if you go where you are now seen in places of like National Space Research Development Agency, and you're now seeing 80 million for dustbins in Oyo, 80 million for sensitization of unwanted pregnancy, 170 million for sensitization for traditional rulers on peace and conflict resolution in space agency.
So what space agency got to do with traditional rulers?
You can believe it. You're now seeing where we have about 300 million over a national news agency of Nigeria for tricycles and school renovation. And you can go on and on and on and seeing things like that. And you ask yourself, how did we come here? Like I've always said, government needs to prioritize our small resources in key development areas, which are health, education, and per capita, pulling people out of poverty. And these areas are not getting enough support.
Now, I'm going to come to Devo Ekorie. Or Devo, if you're there with us, I think Judith has a question for you. Devo?
Devo, first of all, once again, thank you so much for joining us. I mean, you've watched the clip there. Peter Obi, the former presidential candidate for the Labour Party for 2023, highlighting key areas, health, education, and per capita income when it comes to prioritizing limited resources. But how can the government effectively do this, in your opinion?
Okay, Peter Obi was speaking to budget appropriation. Basically, he was analyzing and highlighting some aspects that he felt were not properly appropriated. And as you know, when you have slim resources, you have very little to accomplish goals and objectives that are far wider than the 27 trillion naira budget can take. But what is important is that the budget is a roadmap. It's like a strategy of how you intend to implement the promises or the mandates that you have given the people. I think what generally Nigerians should learn to discuss is the fiscal policy. We hardly discuss the fiscal policy. We always talk about CBN, who is the Monetary Policy Authority. We always talk about interest rates, which most people don't understand. But those things do not have a direct impact as much as the fiscal policy. The fiscal policy is actually the strategy. So if you listen to the fullness of his interview, he was talking more about moving Nigeria from consumption, the subsidies on FX, on electricity, on petroleum subsidy, as I call it, the 7 trillion naira challenge. What else would you have done with 7 trillion naira out of 27 trillion naira instead of paying subsidies? What could it have gone to? So That's what he was pointing to. That's what he was highlighting, and how the little money that we have is literally being wasted on things that we don't exactly need immediately.
All right, then. Well, thank you, David. Well, I want to come into the studio here, and Funke Treasure here with us. I want to know your opinion regarding the mismanagement of funds when it comes to Nigeria and how this has gone on for so long, and also noting what he said from the clip there regarding Nigeria not having a national library. I didn't actually consider that until today. I mean, until the interview.
Too, Zeno.
If I say that I know, would that make me a geek?
Yeah, we're all. Oh, you did? Okay.
I know. I didn't realize that until I listened to him. First, thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for coming on.
Good to be here. So, listening to Mr. Peter Obi, there's some things he touched on spot on. Check for me. He's put his hand on the pulse of the nation and the majority of the people about the government asking us to be frugal and they leaving feasting away, because that's the impression that a lot of Nigerians have. Having said that, and I like that he said governance is a demand, arises from a demand from the people. So you respond to the demand of the people. We've seen the figures. I mean, I like that as he was talking, you were bringing
the bureaus of all the
yes.
And all the headlines.
So my worry when I first watched him was, how do we fact check all of these? Because we've seen from the Kamala Harris Donald Trump debate that you have to fact check some of the things that politicians say, which brings me to the point that Peter Obi himself said that the problem with Nigeria is the totality of our politicians, because the interviewer asked him, including the LP representatives at the legislature, they all collected these gifts of SUVs, and then the question that came to me was, really, beyond the politicians, what about us as a people? Why is it that some people we thought will get there and be the difference are not living up to that difference we're all yearning for? So it puts a question mark on what we also aspire for as people going into governance. Having said that, let's come to these humongous amount of monies that we see both the executive and the legislature allocate to things that are not priority to us, the people. Mr. Obi talked about particular development areas, spot on, education, health, food. He talked about food security and internal security quite eloquently. I give that to him. If we cannot eat, what are we doing as a people? What are you doing if you cannot feed your people? That is number one. Number two, Nigeria is the third largest debtor to the World Bank. The question is, what have we done with all the monies we collected? Because it's not percolating to the people. I'm here to speak for the people. I'm here to ask on behalf of the people, what about us? Where are we in this whole scenario, in this whole matter? How are you responding to our demands? Peter Obi said if he were there, if he were the one, he wouldn't start with an announcement of the fuel subsidy removal. He will deal with the criminality and then go into the details of what needed to be done. My question is, and this is a pervading question in all that we do, how do we deal with the criminality, the vast criminal area that Nigeria has turned into? How do we deal with the criminality?
Speaking of the criminality, I want to come to Olabode for this one, and it's about the presidential jet and the expenses of the presidential jet. To begin with, I remember the Speaker of the House, and that is none other than the ex-governor of Akwa Ibom State, Godswill Akpabio. He was saying that, all the reports about them, confirming a purchase of a private jet for the presidency was untrue. It had not happened. They had not gotten any requisition for that in front of them. I remember he was saying that, there were clips of him saying that, addressing the House and also addressing the press that was present there at the House. And then he went on to say, if that comes to our table, it would not be a secret and we would affirm and purchase a jet. In that interview with with the ex-presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Peter Obi, he raised the cost of a presidential jet, but also a cost of maintaining a presidential jet that has often been criticized, especially the details about its purchase, maintenance being shrouded in secrecy. And so I'm coming to meet you, Olabode, about the issue of transparency and being able to nip at the bud what she talked about in the criminality of it. They claimed they didn't see a requisition. They claimed there wasn't any purchase. They had not seen it. If they were going to purchase it, they would definitely make note of it. If not because of the Chinese firm and the seizure of those jets, we most likely would not have known about the presidential jets.
Yeah. So it's saddening that this kind of thing is happening. I think our let's say leaders or rulers need to look inwards, and begin to do what they were voted in to do, even though, the case of being voted in is still under debate, like Peter Obi said. It's a sad situation, and I think they need to do something very fast. I don't like to personalize some of these things, but as at yesterday night, while going out, there was an accident. We were on the road. We tried to stop and quickly help, the people that might have been involved. And the area boys just swarmed on us, and we had to just take off. There's a lot of hunger in the land. And the truth is, a hungry man like this is an angry man. So even when you are trying to make sense, to let people understand that we need to feel a bit of pain or something like that, you also need to, encourage the people, not, you don't start living, large and all of that.
Yeah, you don't feast when everybody's fasting.
Exactly.
From the
Yes,
interview.
exactly. And the issue of food, even when we are talking about inflation, the food inflation is the highest in that basket of, in the CPI. They really need to look at what's happening in the middle belt and, in the northern part of the countries, because the farmers are not able to farm. And what is going to happen later is there's going to be food scarcity. It's not going to be child's play at all, because you can't keep on. We're already importing a lot of things from overseas. You can't also start importing all.
So it will no longer be the affordability of food. It will be
the total scarcity.
The scarcity.
Yes, the way things are going.
That's a very grim, what you call it now. But he also mentioned something else very interesting regarding wastage and government wastage, and regarding the number of ministers that the government has currently. I'd like us to take that clip on the number of ministers, and then we'll come back to talk about that. Devo is still with us, and I'll be coming to you with that question. So let's take this one. Peter Obi on the number of ministers and wastage in the government.
I have to look at their productivity. What is this they're going to do? Just like I always said, it is just not the number of people. What are they doing? If they are required and they have something they're doing, yes. But that what they're doing will be measurable. People have to feel it and know why they're engaged.
Okay, what I'm really trying to pin you down to tell me is, if you have your way and you have executive order that gives you permission to choose how many ministers you want to work with, would you like to have 6 or 10 or 20, or just say 36 is the number, I am happy to work with 36?
Thank you very much. I won't tell you exactly what I'm going to use here, but I won't go beyond the Constitution.
So what do you say to the current government that has gone beyond the Constitution by having more than 36 ministers?
They should stick to the Constitution and do the right thing, because that's the basis on which they're governing. That is what they swore an oath to keep. The oath is to respect and keep the Constitution. So you live within it. That is actually the essence of what you're doing.
So would you call the action of the current government and the support that they've got from the National Assembly, would you describe it as illegal and unconstitutional?
Yes, it is. Because you're not working with the Constitution. You have to work with the Constitution. That is your Bible. That's what you swore an oath to keep. You cannot swear an oath to obey this and do otherwise. It's the same thing that is happening. Whether you're talking about issues of mismanagement of resources, corruption, everything, you're going out of the oath.
Peter will be there on the number of ministers, and he went on to explain exactly how this causes wastage. He gave the instance of his time as governor and how he had asked that every car used by every body in his retinue be from the PAN, that's Peugeot Assembly Line of Nigeria. And he talked about using Peugeot 406s, which, if you want to measure in the sense of affluence, is not really a car that any rich person would want to use. But this is what he did in his stead. However, he noted that he was met with plenty of backlash, and also, it was fought against. Now, Devo Korea, you're still with us. Let's talk about this. What's your take on the number of ministers and the amount of wastage that amounts from this number?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Loud and clear.
Yes, government wastage is a function of the administration. We all know Peter Obi's style. Yes, he's frugal. Yes, he's prudent. He didn't even need to answer the question put to him, what would you have done? When he was governor, he didn't have a cabinet that was larger than 20 people. Government profligacy has always been, I think between the first and the fifth administrations of this nation since 1960, it was always usually a small cabinet. It came with Obasanjo when the ethnic and religious sentiment started, whereby he then said, okay, to stop the squabble around you pick my person against the other person, it was put into the constitution that a minister should come from each state of the government. Now, putting 36 ministers does not equal impact, does not equal effectiveness. It's about what they do. You could even have 3 ministers. I mean, check America with the population and size that they have. They literally, I think they have about 19 secretaries. Now, the wastage, like I said, is a function of the government in power. I have no issue with 45 ministers. I'm telling you, the government can carry it. The point is, are they doing their job? Are they delivering? There's a mandate that the president signed up to when he received his inauguration. And what did he tell you? He said, don't pity me. I know what I asked for. He also has an essay on presidential ministerial cabinet performance, which was basically a form of accountability for ministers at every point in time, hopefully maybe every 100 days or every half year, to check what they have promised and what they have delivered. This is 1.5 years into the administration, and we haven't seen the president take an evaluation of his ministers. Now, even if the president is not doing his job as the executive, you have a National Assembly made up of, that's a bicameral assembly, made up of about 307 House of Reps and about 109 Senate members who, for the lack of me, I have not seen what they have done. I don't even have issues with the money that they get because, yes, it is absurd. However, are they giving us equal and like delivery in terms of checks and balances on the executive? Are they passing into law policies that will move Nigeria from consumption to production? Look at the fuel crisis and the inability of local refineries from the NNPC to the Dangote to function. What policies have they put in place? Look at the food insecurity. What policies have they put in place to ensure that in the meantime, Nigeria is able to import what it requires while it builds on local capacity? What policies have they put in place to check corruption, which is literally the reason why you have this criminal element in every form of subsidy that is given. This is what Peter Obi was referring to. Anytime policies come that are meant to lift the people, that are meant to elevate the country, you see criminal entities, criminalization of everything that is done. Why did they remove the electricity subsidy? Why did they remove the FX subsidy? Because it was being abused.
Fuke Treasurer is very excited in the studio here.
We see Fuke just, swinging in a chair. But
what is it, Fuke?
And Fuke, I have to ask, right? Because Peter Obi was saying that a return to parliamentary system of government will also tackle the issue of transparency in Nigeria, to toe the same line with Devo, because I see you,
yes,
flipping, and also to speak on the return.
Because for me, what we need is reform in governance.
Do you think returning to parliamentary system?
Yes, I've been an advocate of return to parliamentary system of governance, because Look at us. We've done this US imported presidential system of governance for so long. It has not yielded anything. We cannot manage it in this climate, in Nigeria. Let us return to that system where you will come, present your facts, present your strategy, and people will vote whether to go with it or not. It is the most beautiful, it is what I think Nigeria needs, given our peculiarity. So if we're going to start tackling the criminality, you will go to the parliament to tell us that you want a library for legislature for 15 billion, right? And then justify why that should be bigger than the budget for a national library at just about $1 billion. What kind of book? Let me not say book. What are they reading at the legislature, so much so that they need that kind of money for a library that can only be accessed by them, will only be used by them, not the entire collective, not all of Nigerians. It is just preposterous. How do you even do that? And then Peter said something about the residence of the vice president. Good question to ask. Why do we need another residence for the vice president? He asked, where was the former vice president living?
Yeah.
You see, these are the things that even the biggest supporters of the sitting presidents are not understanding right now. Why are we
There's
doing
a video
all of
we
this?
saw yesterday. It trended on social media. All of the top guns in this administration was there singing, "On your mandate, Tinubu." On your mandate, Tinubu. We said that should have been the song for today's.
That's not a problem for me. I mean, you have your supporters and you have those who don't support you. But what we are saying is that in terms of governance, are the people happy?
I'm glad you're saying
this. The state of the nation right now. I can stand on whatever mandate, that is fine. But what we need as a people is this mandate, is it yielding prosperity for us? Are we growing?
That's what I'm asking. So if you're saying, so again, when you chant songs like that, and when you show where your solidarity lies, and when you look at the Speaker of the House, who is supposed to be a different arm of the government that checks the presidency and checks the executive and make sure to continue to do that, check the power of them, are chanting such words and such songs, it begs to ask the question, can there be any balance where, for example, with the presidential jets or the House of where they're being able to sign up Ways and Means?
I am just sorry for us as Nigerians because it looks like nobody is speaking for us right now. If the executive, just as you said, checks and balances, if the executive, let's say, is not doing things right, what about the legislature? And within the legislature, what about some of the people who've put their confidence in these LP legislators? Why are they not singing different tunes in there?
Focus Treasury, I'm going to let you finish on that one. But the two aspects of the interview I'd like us to touch on Almajiri, I'm going to come to you regarding agriculture. In fact, there's a clip from the interview we have to play regarding his... you're a trader, so you would know this. He talked about inflation as it being a direct influence from our lack of investment in agriculture. But on the other hand, people would normally think that it's a thing of crude oil or our investment in crude oil. So it kind of like switched up on us there. Let's play that clip, and when we come back, you give us your take on the ex-governor's thought on agriculture as an investment for Nigeria. Let's check this out from the NC exclusive interview. Peter will be on agriculture.
We have been informed that whilst we pull that, we'll play it now.
Go back to my position on agriculture. Is to say that the two most critical area in Nigeria that is actually giving us the crisis is personal insecurity and food insecurity. And by solving food insecurity, you would have done a lot in dealing with personal or human insecurity. Because today, from the all records, you have 38 million people on the verge of extreme hunger. and you have huge number of your poverty capital of the world. So by going to deal with food insecurity, you're going to invest in agriculture, which will solve hunger, which is one of your biggest crises today, being 109 out of 120-something countries measures hungriest country. You're going to solve your hunger. You're going to create huge job, because you're seeing it as the biggest in terms of GDP contribution. It's actually the same thing in employment. So you're going to solve issue of unemployment, because it's going to employ more people. It's going to help you, your industries, because they have raw materials to process. The entire value chain is agriculture, processing, marketing, and of course, till it gets to the table where people eat. So you're going to be dealing with that entire value chain, which will create jobs. It's going to help you to deal with the issue of inflation, because the biggest contributor to inflation today, negatively, is food inflation. By having more product, you're going to bring it down. You're going to be saving money you use in importation of food products, again helping your foreign exchange.
That's right.
Like I said, I hear you there, Funke. She says that's right. But there you have it there, Peter Obi, on agriculture and how the entire value chain can actually profit Nigeria when it comes to employment and even inflation as well. Olabode, your take on this?
Yeah, Peter Obi is very right, what he said. I mentioned the issue of hunger earlier on. He's addressed that. And then the issue of unemployment as well. If you have the agri sector really developed, it can employ a vast amount of youths that we see, like the kind of people that I said were harassing us yesterday night. You spoke about oil and inflation as well. The person that was talking about oil was talking about the revenue side of things. Now, if you can produce more oil, then you're getting more revenues. The problem with Nigeria is we are becoming a basket case, quote unquote, because even when you produce more, you have a situation where the money is being squandered. The issue with Nigeria didn't start today. There have been times when we had, I think we were producing above 2.5 million, even in the 70s, before I was born, you know, and now we are producing less than that. Even when I think President Jonathan was there, we're producing above 2 million barrels. We are not producing that much
anymore.
So it's more like we're not just an underdeveloped country, we're a retrogressing country. We're just getting worse and worse. And the problem we now have is the little money that we have is not even being utilized appropriately, frugally, you know, like the way Peter Obi would say we should spend money.
But why is the president still ardently stuck on the method that he's using? Is there hope in the future? Is there something we're not seeing? Is there light at the end of the tunnel? We just have to suffer through it now?
So we hear, meaning there might be some ministerial change or something and all of that. I'm hoping that he will bring in a new set of people. I think one of the big issues in Nigeria which people don't like talking about is the issue of vested interest. And Peter Obi said in that interview about states, he spoke about state capture. When the interview was being played, she was saying something about, you know, it's like we are just different. They are different set of people. We are different. Do you understand? So it's like there's actually and truly a state capture. I've been involved in projects where we started something together and some people just decided that, no, you know, they're the only ones
because they've got interest in it.
Exactly.
I'm going to let you come back to that thought, but I've been informed that we have a short break that we must take, and when we come back, hopefully we can conclude this conversation. Do stay tuned. We're coming back to this. And then, so we're wrapping up when we come back. 4 more minutes, okay. Quick. Can I talk to Devo? Devo, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you
Devo,
hear me?
we're going to ask about subsidy. I know you're passionate about it, but I'm going to need you to keep it short because we only have 4 minutes when we come back.
All right.
Yes, and I'd like to take Welcome back. We've only got a few minutes, so I'm going to be quick with this. During the NC exclusive with Peter Obi, he talked about subsidy. When he was asked if he would have removed subsidy, he said yes, he would have removed it, but maybe not on day one. He would have put in a, well, let's say apparatus to make sure that the Nigerian people do not suffer through. Devo Korea, you are a very passionate individual when it comes to talks about subsidy, its removal, implementation, or whatnot. What was your take on Peter Obi's, his take on removal of subsidy?
I think Peter Obi was being diplomatic. As they say, when you fight corruption, corruption fights you back. You think Tinubu expected the people who are fighting him now to fight him as regards subsidy? So the point is this. I would have naturally said remove it gradually. But you see, these people are bent on using criminal subsidy to keep Nigeria where it's at. You can see, even though we're paying a higher price, we're still fighting for fuel as the station. That's because there's still a little portion of subsidy left that they're using to import in. And as long as they don't get the opportunity to put that small jar on top, they will never remove it. So what we're pushing for and what we hope anybody who comes into government will push for is 100% deregulation. Government should get its hands out of business. Allow the private sector play its role. It might come with a pinch. I know it will hurt Nigerians initially, but our focus is on finding how the savings that government will get on subsidy can be used on other meaningful things like education, health, like transport, like policing, like aviation, etc. That's the only option, because as we are, this is a nation that enjoys the culture of corruption and what I call it lawlessness. So 100% deregulation, just like you have in diesel. You don't see us fighting for diesel because anybody and everybody can bring in diesel.
Let me get your take on it for me, Funke Treasure, because you also you were expressing some thoughts while he was speaking.
Yeah, I was just saying quickly, and I want to touch on the things that I didn't have time to talk about. Yes, we have to fight. We can see that corruption is fighting back. It's not that the president wants evil of miscalculated. Maybe he didn't really do it right from the beginning, but we can see, just as Devo said, that corruption is fighting back. In terms of agriculture, we have we have Ministry of Livestock, right? In addition to what we've had. I mean, this is a nation that had Operation Feed the Nation, Green Revolution, and we're at the point where we're saying a being power. So that something is wrong. Then in terms of cost of governance, I'm wondering, what do we need these junior ministers for? We have 2 ministers per sector. What are they doing? What was the State Minister of State doing? We don't know, because they're not delivering. So maybe Chinese whisperings that there's going to be some cabinet reshuffle.
It's very interesting that during his time of campaigning, the supporters or everyone else who were analysts at the time and those who were in support of the APC would say he was a bureaucrat and a technocrat, and he had an eye for talent. And maybe these junior ministers are the talents.
I think that's part of what we're saying about the cost of governance. Some of these ministers are just not necessary. That's why we're saying let us shift. There has to be a shift to parliamentary from this presidential. It's not working.
Real quick,
and then let's have a conference.
Yeah, so one thing I wanted to mention on the issue of petrol subsidy and all of that is that you see, as long as exchange rates continue to go up, petrol is priced in dollars. even Dangote will not sell to you below its
Yes.
cost price or below what you can get on the international market. So if you say you've increased petroleum prices and you're not watching what's happening in the FX market, what will happen is you have to keep on increasing the prices to match the cost.
Olabode, I'm going to pause you there. We've been given some more time to have this conversation.
Oh, okay.
So here's what we're going to do. Let's go for the news real quick, because Judith's going to bring that to us. And when we get back, we're still going to talk on some of the issues raised by the ex-governor, Peter Obi.
Time for us now to bring you the headlines on Breakfast Extra right here. We get started with Edo State. Reports from Edo State say a two-story building has collapsed in Ikusading, a community behind the University of Benin. The building is reportedly occupied primarily by students of the institution. We'll provide more details and updates as the story unfolds. Away from that and now to energy, we understand that the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited will be the sole buyer of premium motor spirit from the Dangote refinery. Now, this was disclosed by Finance Minister Wale Edun during a press briefing in Abuja. According to the minister, marketers interested in purchasing PMS will have to source it through NNPCL's trading arm. The agreement outlines the terms for crude oil supply to the refinery and the distribution of petrol and diesel. Despite earlier statements from NNPCL, the government maintained control over pricing starting Sunday. Dangote refinery will supply 25 million litres of PMS daily. And we switch gears now to security matters, where operatives of the IGP Special Task Force on Petroleum and Illegal Bunkering have uncovered an illegal petroleum refinery in Port Harcourt, Rivers State. Force Public Relations Officer Olumuyiwa Adejobi described the findings as a significant breakthrough in the continuous fight against oil theft, illegal bunkering, and economic sabotage. Adejobi said the operation had led to the arrest of 4 suspects and the recovery of 40,000 litres of petroleum products stored in 67 white storage tanks.
Illegal bunkering operatives burst illegal petroleum refinery, arrest 4 suspects. As IGP re-echoes fight against economic saboteurs. The operatives of the Special General Police Special Task Force on Petroleum and Illegal Bunkering have once again made a significant breakthrough in the continuous fight against oil theft, illegal bunkering, and economic sabotage. This milestone achievement was marked after the operatives, in collaboration with the Department of Operations, Rivers State Police Command, on 12 September 2024, made discovery of a storage facility in Trans-Amadi, Port Harcourt, Rivers State.
Staying in Rivers State, the Minister of Federal Capital Territory, Nyesom Wike, has solidified his position in the People's Democratic Party leadership crisis as the National Working Committee endorsed the Rivers State Congresses. Wike's loyalists within the PDP NWC not only secured the approval, but also postponed the National Executive Committee meeting originally set for September 26th to October 24th, which could have overturned the decision. The PDP NWC, led by Acting National Chairman Umar Damagum, made this decision during a meeting at the party's national headquarters, Wadada Plaza in Abuja. And now to Edo State, where a pro-democracy group has warned politicians participating in the upcoming Edo State governorship election to shun campaigns promoting violence and focus on issues they intend to address when elected into office. The group, while expressing concerns over recent events in the state leading to the governorship poll, say the attitude of politicians in the state is capable of setting the state on fire. And now that's all we can take for the breakfast headlines here on Breakfast Extra. I am Judith TB. We switch gears now to the conversation from earlier inside of Breakfast Extra.
Yes, indeed. We're still on the NC exclusive from earlier this week on Wednesday when it aired, and all the matters that fell out from inside of there. And just before the break, we were actually talking about subsidy. Our guests had plenty to say about that, so we decided to extend it into this hour. Funky Treasure, were you done on that thought you were sharing with us regarding subsidy? However, how about we do this? There is a clip from the interview that I'd like us to take, and this is on Peter Obi's take on subsidy. I'm hoping that we can play that so that we can get his context on it and exactly how this matters in the grand scheme of things when it comes to Nigeria for the future. So let's take this from NC Exclusive. Hopefully we'll be able to get the substance.
Because I remember you did say that from day one, you say subsidy is gone. What would you have done?
I didn't say from day one. I said I would remove subsidy.
You remove it.
Okay. You know, I didn't say from day one, and I wouldn't have done it
from day
just ordinary announcement.
Okay.
I said, go and read my manifesto. I have to first remove the criminality associated with the subsidy, because the criminality was over 50% of the subsidy. And then after removing it, we would have been able to present a detailed cost.
There you have it. Remove the criminality first before removing a subsidy. Before we went on that break for the news, it was actually Alabode we were talking with. So Alabode, let's come to you regarding that. Now, you were sharing your thoughts on that. Removing the criminality would be what exactly? How do you think that he might have thought, or what do you think he meant by that? Achieve. Thank you very much.
So, you see, the issue of criminality in all cases is evolving. What do I mean by that? If you say you remove subsidy today, it doesn't mean that they won't create a situation where the so-called subsidy will be back in the system. So when initially he said it was subsidy is gone, I think prices went to like 480 initially, and then about 600 thereabouts. But then there was an issue in the FX space. And because we import a lot of these things, we're hoping Dangote would at least limit, if not, eliminate the issue of importation of petroleum products. Once there's still issue in the FX space, petroleum and oil stuff are priced on the international markets in US dollars. What will happen is the price of the fuel or the petroleum products will have to keep going up in line with our FX exchange rate. So if you say you remove subsidy in one area, or you remove the criminality in one space, what about what's happening in the FX space as well? And then if you remove the one there, you have to think of other areas where...
it might be a complete reorientation of the Nigerian mentality.
So, you see, when we talk about... when we talk about the economy, it's not just... shouldn't just look at the financial aspect. There's also the socio-political economy. So the political economy is what Peter Obi was hampering on about, the politicians, and how it's more like there's a state capture whereby they are the ones that just do whatever they want, and then we bear the brunt, you understand? There's also that, mindset of even the people in charge. Because a lot of times, this criminality is not done directly by the politicians.
What drives, you're a trader, FX, so I'm going to ask you, what drives the Naira against the dollar where we see it go higher than the dollar? What are the factors?
So your foreign reserves have a huge impact on that. Your interest rates, if you have high interest rates, it has a negative and a positive aspect. The positive aspect is if you have high interest rates, people would be coming in with funds so that they can get good returns from your end. So it's attractive for them to come in. But the other side of it is those who want to do business locally then have to borrow at a higher rate.
All right. Now, with that being said, because you said there are two parts of this criminality, besides the the subsidy removal and all of the fuel that they are drinking that they claim that Nigeria is using. There's also the FX where, there's a discrepancies with the price.
Exactly.
What then what would it look like in terms of removing the criminality, but also the naira against the dollar being at a formidable price?
Yeah, so you need to build your reserves. That's what happened under
Muhammadu Buhari's tenure.
No. It went down under his tenure. It went down. I think it really started going down under Jonathan's tenure. But I want to start from when we went back into democracy during Obasanjo's regime. He started really building the foreign reserves. That's when the excess crude account, I think, got to over $12 billion or something like that. You understand? And then Yar'Adua also continued with that tempo. I think the problem really started as that when Yar'Adua fell ill. I want to think a lot of stuff started happening before Jonathan actually stepped in.
Right. So then what would it take to build that reserve to get that formidable?
So that's
what
where
can we do
the oil production bit comes in.
So we're back to the oil. I was trying to make you get back to it. So that's why we're back to the oil.
Oil, not agriculture, like Peter would be suggested.
Agri too will do a lot. There are countries where, their own mainstays agriculture. Even in Nigeria, before oil was discovered, my own school was built with cocoa. That's what we were told.
We had the groundnut pyramids.
Exactly, in the north.
Where are they now?
Exactly.
That's why I referenced Operation Feed the Nation, Green Revolution, and look at where we are. The other day, my friend in Ghana brought Ghana chocolate because they're also producers of cocoa. Where are we?
Yeah, and then if you look at the chart, we have dropped significantly.
Mr. Peter Obi talked about moving from consumption to production. So all of these things that we produce, where do they end? Number one, and production has dropped significantly in terms of agriculture. So you're saying if we're not doing oil, what else? So the sitting president came with the Blue Economy Ministry. So we're waiting to see how we can convert that to some advantage for the country. However, the other day I went to Niger State by road. Of course, there's no airport there. You would be amazed at the vegetation. The landscape is one of the most beautiful I have seen in Nigeria. I was shocked to the marrow. And I bought Niger rice. Yes. That's what I'm eating now. Nice. And I said, but we have all of this. What are we doing with agriculture? We have so much we can do with it. If only there will be consistency with our policies. When the sitting president leaves, another president is going to come and discontinue and then start his own. I think that's why we're where we are. And then our emperors at the state level, our governors, where exactly are they putting their monies? If you're not pursuing agriculture relentlessly and intentionally, then there's a problem.
It's always when we talk about agriculture, oftentimes it's very interesting how the solutions are right in front of us, but somehow it's very hard to grasp. It's like air. We see it, we breathe it, we can feel it, but somehow you can't seem to grasp it. And it makes you wonder, and I'm coming to you, Devo, for this question. What would it take in terms of our political class? Is it political will? Is it transparency? Is it more money? Is it flushing out the unknown gunmen? What would it take for our agricultural sector to get back to its glory days?
I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
I always advocated that Nigerian leaders should be flogged, okay? And I mean that literally. Flogged for the failure in the agricultural sector. Peter Obi did do a good breakdown of how impacting, it's almost like a 360 impact for agricultural sector, from first addressing food insecurity, okay? How does a nation that's within the equator, with all the arable land that we have, not have enough food for itself, talk less of exporting? Two, the agricultural sector is among the GDP, it's the second largest employing sector in the country, okay? Thirdly, remember part of the poverty, taking us out of the poverty capital, is by creating jobs that employ people. The agricultural sector will address that directly. 2, Nigeria suffers a revenue problem. Most of our revenue comes in from the oil sector, that's our FX, and our non-oil FX, though diversified, is minimal. Now, agriculture, if supported, would have given us extra income, especially when other areas are suffering. Thirdly, if you have sufficient food, okay, enough for yourselves and extra, meaning you're producing in commercial quantities, you would have enough to export, okay? Sometimes I ask people, whilst we are here looking for food and planning to import, the countries that you're importing from, like Ukraine is going through a war, yet they're able to import to Nigeria. Corn takes 3 months to grow. Rice takes 3 months to grow. Other crops that are perennial take about 8 months to a year to grow. Why have we not called for a state of emergency in agriculture? I think we're joking. I think we're playing. There's no other person that we need to tell us what is required to be done as regards agriculture. If you remember, like your co-panelist mentioned, before the discovery of oil, Nigeria's income came from cocoa, groundnut, and palm oil. How is it that we lost the capacity to rule in those areas? And these are the basic things that we can do. And when I say basic, I'm not referring to substance. The First Lady told us to go and put farms at the back of our houses. Yes, that is helpful, but that will not get us to where we require, that will get us to incomes that will require to boost and generate income for ourselves. I think that next time we go for election, well, we don't have to wait for election. Nigerians should push the National Assembly to call a state of emergency in agriculture, because it's just a complete shame that a country blessed with the agricultural capacity that Nigeria has is suffering or is literally going through a famine. Look at the flood that took place in Maiduguri. The flood should be a form of expedited or allocated irrigation to last from dry season to wet season.
Right.
But you can see, because of the corruption that took place in the maintenance of that dam, right now that flood has destroyed almost 10 states worth of proper agriculture taking place. Olam did a backward integration of $150 million in Nasarawa. In the last flood that we had 2 years ago, all the rice that was planted was capsized in water. This is what you get when Nigerian citizens tolerate the bad governance that comes from whichever administration. So I think as a people, we should begin to push for a state of emergency in agriculture first, to at least address some of the issues. And that also includes addressing insecurity. Without state police, this insecurity will continue. And without security, our farmers will not be able to do the needful to be able to give us enough to eat small amala and beggary on the table.
Devo, as always, salient point that you raised there is state of emergency on agriculture, state of emergency on security. Should we declare state of emergency on education as well, Funke?
Well, let me quickly add that Devo is just spot on.
I noticed that you're best friends with him now, because you're just like...
Yeah, so in Niger State, they were telling me they have 2 rounds of tomato planting and harvesting, but they now do 1 round. Why? Because, first of all, the rain, but then again, in security. Because the farmers are afraid to go to the farms. And it's pervasive everywhere in Nigeria because of this internal security, so food security, internal security. What was the question again? Because I needed to say
Education.
That. Education, of course. Oh, Lord.
Thank you. The price of tuition has tripled in 1 year alone. School books tripled. Out of school children, we still are not able to bring that number.
You don't have kids.
Please, I pay fees.
No, but this is what we see every day. The issues we're dealing with in the education sector is just... So then you begin to wonder why the legislature would allocate 15 billion to a national library. Look at primary education. Dr. Peter Obi talked about primary healthcare. Let's not even go there. Let's talk about this education. You've asked me, how many of our schools have chairs? How many of our children are not sitting in potholes in the classrooms? How many of our children have slates and books and stuff to read, even when there is UBEC and SUBEB and all these agencies and all? Look at our universities. Many of them are they're heaving. They're practically caving into pressure from this electricity bills. It's difficult from primary to secondary to tertiary. There is a crisis in education, which is why all of us took on the Professor Tahir, the Minister of Education. Please don't go here, because really that's a distraction. The real issues are there.
Wow. We're out of time, but lastly, Nigeria, state of emergency, yes or no? We'll start with you.
Maybe yes or no? I don't want to be an alarmist, but yes, we need things to work.
Devo, state of emergency in Nigeria, yes or no? Nigeria, state of emergency.
Devo,
we lost your audio there.
I bet you
we cannot hear you.
It says yes.
Well, it says yes. That's it.
Well,
yes.
It's obvious that everything ties into everything else. Education, food security, personal security, and all whatnot. It all ties into each other. It was a very interesting interview here on News Central with the exclusive with Peter Olby. And I'm sure that a lot of people actually had plenty diverse things to say, whether they enjoyed it, whether they had certain grouse about it, but it was very interesting and eye-opening to see. And we have, by so doing, also given our own take on some of the issues that he raised there with our very wonderful panel here. I want to say thank you very much, Devo Okorie, for joining us on video call, and of course, you Funke Treasure, and also Olabode. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That was very robust, and you've made a new friend, so I'll be giving you Devo's contacts, because you guys were vibing.
Devo, this is, you guys might want to invite him to have a seat at the table.
Oh, yes.
Devo. Yeah, it should.
Thank you very much, gentlemen and lady. Do stay tuned, because we have a very interesting matter to talk about when we get back here inside of Breakfast Extra.
And you're welcome to our extra special today on Breakfast Extra. Today we'll focus on a topic that often lurks in the shadows but has devastating consequences for families, communities, and the nation as a whole. It's suicide. In observance of World Suicide Prevention Week, we shine a light on this silent epidemic that is claiming lives across the globe, including here in Nigeria. You most likely must have seen that devastating video from over the week. Now, with the country currently going through significant economic and social challenges, the weight of social or financial pressure, unemployment, insecurity, and other stressors is pushing many Nigerians to the brink. It is crucial that we address these issues head-on, fostering open dialogue, understanding, and effective support systems.
Now, in Nigeria, mental health awareness has often taken a backseat to other pressing national issues. Yet the rising cases of depression, suicidal ideation, and also self-harm tell a different story, one that calls for immediate attention. So this week provides us with an opportunity to reflect on how we can all play a role in suicide prevention, from encouraging conversations about mental health to ensuring that people feel supported and also understood.
And so joining us to discuss this critical issue today are our esteemed guests. We have with us here Dr. Bojubola Abiri. She's a consultant psychiatrist, and she joins us live here in the studio. She's also an associate lecturer. Thank you so much for joining us, ladies. And we also do have with us as well. She's laughing. Forgive me. But we also do have with us here also somebody here who's very, very important. And I would like for you to just help us, first of all, to introduce yourself. There we go. Oluwatumise Oladapo. She's a life coach and a mental health advocate, and she joins us live in the studio. Ladies, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, let's talk about this situation here regarding suicide, especially here in Nigeria. What are the stats? Let's start with you, Dr. Bojubola, for people who perhaps might experience this.
Okay, so I always think that a great place to start is to tell us what the issue is. So suicide is a complex yet preventable mental health problem that, of course, because of an interplay of psychological, emotional, socioeconomic issues. Suicide is self-intentioned, self-inflicted harm in which, the individual who decides to do it knows that it has a fatal outcome. Now, what are the numbers? The WHO will tell us that every year, between 720,000 to 800,000 people take their lives by suicide. At a point in 2019, they did say that 1 every 40 seconds dies by suicide. Suicide is currently, the 3rd leading cause of death in, young people aged 15 to 29. And suicide is the 10th leading cause of death worldwide. In Nigeria, interestingly, our statistics is that in Africa, we are the 7th. We rank 7th in the suicide number. And worldwide, we're number 15. So the numbers are there. The statistics is there. It's ringing through. And the earlier we start to pay attention, the better for all of us.
Now, that's a very grim stat there. But mostly this goes unchecked, unannounced, untold. Stories that we don't hear about it until sometimes, most times, when it's too late. Is this a thing with our culture, Tumishe?
I'm so glad you started with culture because I was going to speak from there. But you know that we have an adage in Yoruba that says, it is better to die than to live in shame. All right, so when you have, and being a linguist, you know how it works. When you say things like that, it speaks to your mind. Like, okay, I would rather die than go through or navigate through whatever it is that's going through me or I'm going through. And yes, culturally, honor death, honor killing, all of that speaks subtly to suicide. They do. I would rather not speak about it. We live in a silent culture. So yes, these are the things. The numbers are scary, trust me. And Baju is trying to be conservative, but the numbers are scary. And we do not have the tools as a people to help each other navigate through these things. That's just the honest truth.
Why is our culture silent? Why is our culture silent towards? I remember the book Things Fall Apart, right? And Okonkwo. And I remember an interview with Chinua Achebe, and when he was asked why he made Okonkwo die, he said, because there are people that are like Okonkwo. And in fact, Okonkwo was informed by somebody in his own personal life who died. When you read his biography and his book on himself, more like a memoir, there was a young man who went to school with him and also took his life, who was suicidal as well, and took his life. And he said, Okonkwo is here, is among us, is every single one of us. He's that way, he behaves that way. But do you think that our cultural norms have encouraged silence so much so that I remember when you were back here, you were sharing a story of how a child or one of your patients was saying that, he's gotten to that point, and instead of the mother, comforting him, it became very combative. There's also a video that we saw that after they saved the child, they started. So why does our culture do that? What exactly is that element in our culture?
Also, I like that you said cultural norms, because what has happened is that we have normalized it as a society. We're like ostrich with head in sand. If it doesn't touch me, if it doesn't concern me, then life could as well just be okay. However, over time, it's silence and secrecy have worsened issues like, mental health. And why do people keep quiet or silent? People keep quiet because of the issues of shame, because of the issues of stigma, because of ignorance, because of discrimination. And these, unfortunately, are the factors that continue to fuel it. Mental health, of course, like we know, until the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, had taken a back burner. It was when COVID came that people felt like, wow, it's in all of us. We all have it.
Why, though?
So again,
why did it take COVID for us to realize that?
Because you're not quiet to your thoughts.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay, so I'll use myself as an example. I'm a survivor, attempted 4 times.
Oh, dear.
And it started with postnatal depression. And I remember, how...
You want to explain that
postnatal depression.
After having a child.
After having a child, I had some depression. And I remember when, the omugwo thing, and when my mother is bathing me, she would say, I will interpret it. So there's no record of postnatal psychosis in my family. And even at that point, I'm like, okay, what's this woman saying? I didn't even know what it was, but I knew that I was not the narrative is for us that when you have a child, you're extremely excited and all of that. I was excited to have a child. I was not excited to have people around me. Get the heavens out of my sight.
Thank you very much.
you know, and then I began to, and it went on for a month, 2 months, and God bless my mother-in-law who said something was wrong. And then we began to have, so the reason is because we want to protect the family name. We want to protect ourselves from not being part of the people they talk about. Yeah, so until we get to the point where we know that these things are real and they happen, for us to have a lexicon that covers postnatal psychosis in Yoruba, then it's been with us.
Very interesting that you said that.
Been with us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Then it's been with us.
When he said, look, Okonkwo is here, is with us every present day, every single time. He's not alien. And I needed to bring it back in all the way, all back pre-colonial era, to show that there are people like that who are conflicted and who would do that. And so it takes me to my next question. You just talked about one incident that drove you, and that was, postmortem psychosis. Depression is another, isn't it? So what are some of those cases besides depression and this that could drive somebody not only to suicide, but suicide ideation?
All right, so it's interesting that research has shown that in 90% of people who actually successfully complete their suicides, 90% actually had an undiagnosed, undetected, and untreated mental illness. A majority of that mental illness is depression. Then there's bipolar affective disorder, which again is depression or mania, or at least the individual must have had, a taste of both worlds. And then of course there's schizophrenia. Schizophrenia is a mental disorder in which, the individual has abnormalities of thoughts, of, behavior, of perception, where they hear voices, see strange things, have unusual experiences, and have paranoid thoughts as well. And then there's substance abuse. Substance abuse disorders, including alcohol and all the other illicit substances of abuse. But of course, it's also very important to mention that beyond mental illnesses, people have chronic physical health conditions that can actually, tilt them towards suicide. So HIV, cancers, uncontrolled hypertension, diabetes, maybe the individual has had, an amputation of some sort. Both physical and mental health disorders can put people at risk of, suicide.
Wow, this is a lot to take in, actually, especially that most of these cases have underlying matters that are there. Now, but regarding our culture, culture is one thing, but then there's also laws as well. In Nigeria, we've got a law, and I think earlier this week there was a drive to try and change that law regarding criminalizing suicide attempts. What's wrong with that? Please.
The first thing that's wrong with that is it was called the Lunacy Act of 1958. It is a lunacy act. Nobody, no matter what they're going through, no matter how evolved they are, would scare you to silence. And this was a colonial law.
Is it effective? Was it ever effective? What was the use if it wasn't effective?
I don't want to preempt the colonial masters, but for them to have called it Lunacy Law 1958, maybe we had people, our ancestors, who were actually committing suicide because of colonial behaviors.
Oh, there was. There was.
Then again, we also have, if you, just recently, I watched, all of us have watched The House of God, and I was looking into the life of Efushetu Aniwura. And Efushetu Aniwura became the person she was because she had unresolved grief. And eventually lost herself. The same thing with Ga. His brother was killed before him, and then he became this person. So we just never talked about it. So when we have the Lunacy Act that is backing something from our culture.
So, if I were going to add to what Timisha has just said, it's important to note that Nigeria is one of 23 countries that have not yet decriminalized suicide. So the Criminal Code Act, subsection 327 says that anyone who tries to kill themselves, is guilty of a misdemeanor and would have 1 year imprisonment. So it's a law that says that the individual who attempts and who does not successfully get it done will spend, 1 year. Again, it's
That's
inhumane.
rather weird because you're saying
it
you
adds
better
to
get
the
it done
yeah,
at
exactly.
the end of the
So
day.
it adds to the shame and stigma, and it further resolves and strengthens the resolve of the individual to say, you know what, let me just get it done. And like Tumishe said, yes, the previous law was the Lunacy Act of 1958. However, one of the gains that we had last year was that we had the Mental Health Act signed signed
earlier,
January the
last year,
5th, 2023. And what both laws have done, which of course the Mental Health Act is tidier with, is that it seeks to the provision of mental health services and support for individuals who have mental health issues, and also speaks to the fact that we must treat them, away from stigma, discrimination, give attention to their employment, their housing, and even give children who have mental health issues the attention that they deserve.
Where does it begin? With the individual or with the society? How do we begin to get help? Do we proffer that to the individuals, or do the individuals have to come forth first?
So I think that, for me, if you ask me, I think it would start with being aware. Do people know? What do people know? Where do they get their information? How, solid is the information that they get? You'd be surprised. I meet people who tell me, wow, there's psychiatrists in Nigeria. Wow, I didn't know that there were therapists in Nigeria. So there's still a lot of knowledge gap. And that knowledge gap is largely, influenced by, again, culture and, our religious beliefs. Those are the things that have fueled how people react or respond, to circumstances or situations, including those that have to do with life or death situations. And so I honestly believe that awareness, advocacy, education at the level of the people, again, it's pretty much like it's intertwined. We would pick up what we need to do. Everybody has to be doing something all at the same time. But until individuals are empowered enough to be able to speak to, talk about, without shame, unashamed, like we call it.
I'm so glad you keep using the word shame. And so, if anyone's watching this, right, and has suicidal ideation, or has attempted or tried it, or is constantly dealing with it in its head, it's just there in your head, it's a constant battle between the voices, the demon, and that grief. And you said that, that's a word you said, that oftentimes it may not be depression, it may be anything, it might be an offshoot of grief that this person must have carried over time, right? As a life coach, what would you say?
The first thing, again, is self-awareness, and make sure that your tribe is solid. Make sure that your tribe is solid.
So if my tribe is not solid, you thought
but you and I had a very short conversation before we came in here.
Right.
And when I said I was diagnosed back in, she said, in Nigeria? I said, yeah. Everything happened here. I'm one of the
Were you surprised though? Surprised it was?
I was impressed that she accepted the diagnosis. Quite a number of people would have said, oh, no.
Impressed.
Yes, because people fight the reality of a diagnosis with a mental health condition.
Yes, for me, because I'm extremely functional. I was a radio presenter for 20 years, and then at the peak of my career, someone is telling me I have bipolar affective disorder. How? Then so I had to sit down and then, oh, okay, my manic phases is where I push my work hard. Then when I'm at home, and oh, that's what's going on. So and again, your tribe has to be strong. Shout out to my mother-in-law, who knew something was wrong, and she kept saying, go to the doctor, go to the doctor. And of course, my husband. And the process for me. I was ill, constantly ill, and my doctor said something was wrong because all my tests were coming back okay.
Wait, you were ill physically now?
Physically, but I was having somatic responses, my body, And then from there, he said, go see an internist. Yes, in Nigeria? I saw an internist in Nigeria, a family physician. And then she said, you know what, Tumishe, let's see a psychiatrist. And I'm like, what? And that it took me 6 months to be able to get to the point where, let's go. And what happened on the 6-month mark, I had a full-blown psychotic meltdown, and I knew it was time.
It's very.
Hang on, wait. Hold up. One thing about me is I don't like divulging personal information, but unfortunately,
you don't have to.
I don't, of course. It's all right. But you were talking about your diagnosis, and it was very interesting for me because I had an opportunity where I had to see a therapist, and talking, they'll ask about your family and everything, and then she paused and said, what did you just say about one of my parents? And I said it, and then she paused and said, is he autistic? And I said, oh no, he's not, you know. And then she asked certain things, because I was telling a story, and then she said, I'm not sure, but what this points is that one of your parents is neurodivergent. And after that, every single time he was my dad, or I said, every single time I just look at him, I was like, makes sense. It makes sense. It makes perfect sense that this man,
You're lost. I'm lost.
So he is on the spectrum. He's on the spectrum.
Okay.
So it was very interesting.
So that affects this seen as a sort of hereditary.
No, so his parenting,
definitely.
his parenting, the things he does, it was very. So when they ask him about family background, tell us about. So and then. Every single time I'd say that part of it, she would look at me and like, pause.
There's something here.
There's something here. And then now it even extended more grace for me. And so with that being said, to a family that's watching this, who has seen the signs with their family, seen signs with a loved one, a friend, how can they find in themselves that grace to extend to a family member? I know this is hard.
And it's fine. It's fine. I'm in a very fine place now. And see, it is difficult. Yeah, it is difficult. But trust me, it is better. Even my 17-year-old and my 13-year-old know I'm bipolar, because it helps. They know that when I'm on the depressive spectrum, it's not about them. It's not about them. So for anyone who's listening now, it is imperative, or watching, it's imperative that you do not spiritualize it.
Oh, say it again for those at the back.
It is imperative that you do not spiritualize. And if you have to, blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Jesus did not say you shouldn't mourn. He said you can mourn because you can get comfort. Yeah, he did not say we should not grieve, but he has said that don't grieve in a certain way. But there is nowhere in the scripture, for those who are Christians, there's nowhere in the scripture that says that you cannot connect with your emotions. Go and study David, study Moses, study Abraham. None of them denied.
Holding back is actually also...
Yes, please. It is imperative to have a conversation with your doctors. I know that in this part of this world, it's very difficult to have conversations with doctors. Yeah. But
it's expensive too.
It is expensive, but it's also very affordable. When I started going to the neuropsychiatric, eventually I got private help, but I started my journey with the neuropsychiatric hospital Yaba. And there is a VIP section, so to speak.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. Now, when people hear that name, Yaba, left, that's the reaction
and we should stop it.
Even when people attend or have been to this facility, they don't want to go back. So how can the government help in terms of infrastructure? What suggestions do you have for the government in terms of infrastructure for people who need this help?
Also, how can we change the social cultural perception of going to seek help at Yaba?
Yes, it's the same question, really.
We continue this. We continue having conversations. We continue having conversations.
And then I think it's also very important that we start becoming real. You know, when they say, if it be you, we only want to hear it with really nice things. Mental health issues can happen to anyone, regardless of age, gender, socioeconomic status, race, or religion. I think when we come to that knowledge, thinking I'm not immune, it can happen to me. And if I am not, equipped with the right information, if I don't have access to the right resources, this could actually be a life or death matter.
Yes.
So accepting that reality, not fighting it.
I need us to play something before we round up. There's a clip.
I can't watch that thing.
The clip of a young man who actually was stopped and then was beaten. It
broke my heart.
You can see it there right now. It's very, I know for those who are aware, it's very difficult to watch, if you get what I mean. Like Judith has just said that she's not even going to see it. So you can imagine the kind of effect that it elicits from people.
I was in a group when they shared this, and the first thing that came up was, maybe the person voted for so and so. That is why.
Oh, there's
upsetting.
Tumishe, there was someone that said, if you want to kill yourself, why are you not going to go to a quiet place and kill yourself? Why you come here if you're not looking for attention? And I will say this. Because of that thing, it sent me in a downward spiral. And I was journaling at the end of the evening, and I wrote this because I journal part of one of... So one of the things, the thing I said is, isn't death and birth ceremonious? If birth is ceremonious, shouldn't death be ceremonious? Question. Entry and exit into life has always been ceremonious. Isn't our culture as a whole calls a secretive death a taboo? Can you die in silence, and would they not shun that away as taboo? So what then is an honorous death? That's the question I ask. What is an honorable death?
I wish.
Sorry, Masina, we've just done something to you.
I'm trying to be the timekeeper here. Judith, I'm so sorry. You work here. So we can't go into that because I would like us to real quickly touch on and tell about getting help. Real quick, Dr. Bondibola, because we're out of time.
Well, so psychiatrists exist, mental health services exist. They're private and public, like Tumishe has rightly said. They are the federal centers, that is the Federal Neuropsychiatric Hospital, Yaba. There's Lagos University Teaching Hospital. Lagos State, of course, has the Lagos State University Teaching Hospital as well. And all the primary health care centers in Lagos have also, been equipped with, people who have mental health, knowledge
and then Lagos
to help.
State also has a wellness center that you can work to.
For their
just
workers.
like,
What about immediate help? Talking to someone.
Talking to someone.
Hopefully they don't
Journal. Okay. Look for something that makes you connect with yourself. Okay. Shut down. For me, I shut down 6:30. Nothing can be happening in the world. 6:30, I shut out the world.
I think it's also important to speak to
we've been threatened that we're going to be kicked out.
Hotlines. So there's the Lagos Mine hotline, and there's also the SURPIN hotline, the Suicide Prevention Network hotline. There are lines that are available, and quite a number of NGOs also offer hotlines, including ASIDO, Psych Bubble, just to mention a few.
Well, there you have it. And if you are watching this, remember that there is help plenty for you. Go onto your Google search there and find those hotlines, the Lagos State hotlines, the suicide prevention hotlines, and also speak to somebody who cares, who understands, and who would give you grace. Remember that suicide is, you are okay, you are fine. It is normal to feel that way.
It's not an option.
It's not. If it's an option for you, remember that we love you and there are people here for you. With that note is how we close the curtains on today's Saturday installment of the Breakfast Extra show. My name is Judith Atimi.
And of course, my name is Mazino Appeal. I want to say thank you to all our guests we had on here today, including you, Tumishe, and of course you, Dr. Bondibola. Thank you very much. Can't wait to have you guys back again, perhaps maybe for a bigger conversation on this. Thank you.
Thank you.
And it's goodbye from us until tomorrow for a Sunday edition here for Breakfast Extra. Bye-bye now.
Good night.